or just go and download the Voice and Viewpoint app in the Google or Apple store, and you can pull the paper up free of charge at any time with no strings attached. So we're excited about the extent to which we have branched out. We're being read nationally and internationally. We've made our presence known as far as the White House and going north in the state to the Capitol. And we're just excited that we're having an opportunity to have an impact. Glad to be here with Dr. Leonard Thompson III, our partner in this whole effort. And Dr. Thompson, please say hello to our guests.
Well, good evening, everyone. Just want to let everyone know that you can call and be a part of this conversation. The number is 858-251-6111. Please note that you are to ask a question, maybe have a little discussion, but we do not argue or banter on the show. We basically have a true discussion and answer questions that are being brought to us. Now, Dr. Warren, I might sound happy, but I'm not. There has been another mass shooting in Tennessee, and again, this dude decided to go live and stream it live. When are we going to stop having this conversation and put a ban to these AK-47s and all these assault rifles?
Well, it has been estimated that there might be over 1 million assault weapons in circulation in the country now, and that there are more guns than people. If you look at all of it across the board, it's not bad enough that we lost those people in the school shooting. Then we turn around and we have this young gunman go into this bank and kill people, shoot out. And even though the response time is being played up as being less than 3 minutes, about 4 minutes, they were engaging him and taking his attention away from the people in the bank. The bottom line is at the end of these encounters, people are dead. And so we found a spinoff scenario after the killing that took place with the 3 kids and the adults, the kids being 9 years old at the Covenant Christian School. We had these 2 black members of the legislature in Tennessee who rose up and joined the protesters who were pushing for gun reform in the state out of the frustration with the number of people that were losing their lives. And they were joined by a older white female member of the legislature. And we saw something that we hadn't seen.
Now, all Democrats, right?
They were all Democrats. Okay. And of course, these legislative bodies are controlled by Republicans because years ago, the Republicans gerrymandered and used algorithms to structure the district so that they can be in charge no matter what the numbers are. Now, for some people, it's kind of hard to understand what I just said if you don't engage in politics. So I'm going to give you a local example of how this can work. If you take, for instance, Spring Valley and Lemon Grove, La Mesa, you put those in a county supervisorial district along with rural East County, you still got more people out there in East County than whatever number of blacks or Latinos you might have in those cities, in those enclaves. And so they have spread out and drawn the boundary so that there will always be more people. Now, we've seen an example of this gerrymandering recently in Mississippi, in Jackson, Mississippi, where the efforts have been made by the legislature to create this separate enclave, like a district, which takes in many of the black people who lives in Jackson and people who are all over the place there. You take these people in, and then you override the power that the mayor has in terms of the local city. We've covered these stories before. So what we're trying to look at right now is these 3 people, the vote came in the legislature, they expelled the 2 young black men, the white woman and retained her seat by 1 vote, as you see now from the news. As of this afternoon, the second young man, Pierce, was reinstated in his position on an interim basis while they're scheduling a special election for both of them to see in terms of getting. So they are back in the legislature. The Republicans boycotted the vote this afternoon. And since it was done based on the rules by a simple majority, then it was 7 Democrats in the legislature that reinstated him today.
Well, Justin, the the rep Justin Pearson must know Jesus, because when he was reinstated, he began to preach and dance and testify at his rally. See, God will say, if God be for you, who
Can be
could be
against
against
you.
you? What Republican could be against you? And the thing about it that's really sad is that we're getting more and more information, even about different shooters, even with the bank. They said that the person's son, I mean, person's mother called 911 and said, "Look, he's coming to the bank. Y'all better do something." So even she knew
Yeah.
that it was going to be a bad situation. And the question comes in is this, and Dr. Warren, I'll ask you this question: if you see a person getting ready to go into a building with an assault rifle, do you have to identify yourself before you shoot them?
Well, I'm gonna tell you the answer to that question. It depends on what state you're in. If you're
Uh-huh.
in an open carry state like Dirty Harry, then hey, you know what? If you shoot them, you can probably get away with the make my day rule that they
Okay.
came up with.
Okay.
Okay, but most people are not armed.
Yeah.
So what are they gonna do? I mean, they can make a phone call, but he's already shot some people by the time you make the phone call.
Mhm. And the thing that really just disturbs me, and I think that people are not paying attention to this, but because of so many mass shootings, because of so many things that have been happening around the country, more and more people are starting to carry and get concealed weapon permits to carry concealed weapons. And so I think that this is really causing more weapons to come on the street. And the sad thing about it is they're getting the weapons and they're not trained. Sometimes they shoot their own self. And in the community, we say, don't pull it unless you're gonna use it. So a lot of people respond out of anger, disappointment, hurt, and we see chaoticness taking place throughout our country. So I'm starting to wonder, is this a plan of people that are not a part of the United States? Give them enough drugs, give them enough guns, and we can just walk in and take over.
Well, I hate to give you the news, but the heart of all of our problems here is racism.
Okay.
That's at the very heart of it. In the old South, they were actually able to convince poor white people that as bad as your situation is, black folks are worse off than you, so you can look down on them and feel good, even though you don't have nothing. Okay, and
Mhm.
people have bought the myth. You got to remember that the whole gun thing was the false sense of a threat because of the numbers of people coming in. You might remember that the Latinos about 15, 20 years ago, they started celebrating May Day,
Mhm.
and they had major turnouts in cities like LA, and they were waving the Mexican flag instead of the American flag, and the whole reaction to white America was they trying to take over the country.
Yeah.
So everything became a justification for arming.
Mhm.
All right. And then you got to remember the distinction between the people who live in the city and the people who live in rural areas.
Mhm.
If you live in a rural area, you're going to have a gun or some guns.
Mhm.
When I grew up and visited my grandfather's brothers way back up in the woods in the country, when you went in their log cabins, there was a shotgun hanging over the door and maybe another rifle hanging over the fireplace.
Mhm.
Wasn't nobody calling the police out there if there was something going on.
Mhm.
And so we have sold a false bill of insecurity to people. You know, when I think back 50 years ago, when I was in the military, around the end of the Vietnam War, you could not buy a AK-47.
Mhm.
I remember when the military switched from the M14 to the M16, which is AK-47 weapon, and then started selling commercially. And
Mhm.
so it's just been all about business, even though people have no use for this. Now, here in San Diego County, if you ever go out, and I think they put a halt to it, but when they were having the gun shows, the West East West gun shows at the Del Mar Fairground, if you went in there, you saw all of these weapons, but you saw something else that was very, very interesting. You saw uh, the equipment that you have to make your own bullets,
Mhm.
and the scales, the shells, the load, the meter, and all of this, and those things would be selling like hotcakes
Mhm.
because the people who live back in the rural areas of this county and of their state. Many of them make their own bullets. They don't go down to Walmart to buy a box of bullets. They make their own stuff. And so all of this is geared toward that mentality about you got to protect yourself, and it's gotten out of hand because when you use these weapons and you fire AK-47, that bullet can pass through walls and kill somebody on the street.
Yeah.
And it's just is no need. And so what we've established, this is why what happened in Tennessee is so important because it really showed for another time that the mentality of the Republican Party, if there's anything that's un-American, is their attitude. They are not, if you look at them taking over Congress, they're not about legislation. They are about weaponizing government. They're about Jim Jordan taking judiciary, trying to go into New York and hold hearings that he has no authority to hold. And that's why it's so important that the New York District Attorney Braggs has sued him in terms of interfering. What we should be focusing on is whether or not we impeach Clarence Thomas, because Supreme Court justice can be impeached. And the kind of stuff that he's been doing for years, plus his wife's activities and involvement in January 6th, he should be impeached and removed from the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is not going to make any rules that imposes any change on him. That's not going to happen. And the only way to remove him as a justice is through impeachment. The Senate can bring impeachment charges, but they're not going to do it. And the reality is that Clarence Thomas should have never been put on the Supreme Court in the first place. He didn't have anything that qualified him to be there. It was a racist move by the Bush administration to put someone who was 3 times less than Thurgood Marshall had been so that there would be no continuation of the kind of change and hope that black people had in seeing a black face there. He was of our color, but not our kind.
Okay. And so a lot of things are happening in politics. A lot of things are happening around the world. But, you know, I want to focus today on San Diego because, man, our little city and our little big city got a lot of transitions that just happened all because of one person. So let's talk about it.
Well, you know, Dr. Thompson, this week I have an editorial. You have a copy of it there. It's called Concerning, what is it? What's the title?
Concerning San Diego County elections.
Yes, concerning.
Now, I'm expecting you to read this because
Yes.
I want people to really get this.
Concerning
I'm sorry.
San Diego County elections. And I do want to read because I want people to hear it, okay? And this is what it says. A number of vacancies are about to open in San Diego County politics. The resignation of Supervisor Nathan Fletcher. This vacancy must be filled by a special election, and that's our demanding that a special election be used, regardless of the cost. Now, we know that there are 675,000 people that live in the 4th Supervisorial District. He just got elected to a 4-year term, so we don't need an interim person. We need this done. We cannot have political interests other than that of the people who are empowered to vote. Make such life impacting decisions for all of us. And so that means then that if we appoint someone, they don't have to represent us. They just represent the politics of getting 3 votes to get the position. And we're trying to make sure that that does not happen. There can be no special appointment of any individual for any interim period of time other than a duly elected person to carry out the balance of Fletcher's term. And it must be noted that the Board of Supervisors, in a unanimous vote 4-0, has called for his immediate resignation as opposed to waiting until the 15th of next month. Next, this special election is already triggering other electoral shifts. Will 4th City Council District Representative Monica Montgomery Stepp expected to announce that she will seek to fill the vacancy created by Fletcher's resignation from the 4th Supervisorial District seat? There will be a vacancy created on the San Diego City Council. While these positions are nonpartisan, no one should assume that the San Diego County Democratic Club has any special role or ability under either the City of San Diego Charter or the San Diego County Charter, with each charter governing the operations of its respective body. And this statement is important because that group is already positioning people and giving the impression that their vote is going to make the difference in terms of who goes into the position, and they do not have any power. They only have what they can convince people to do in terms of trying to persuade them.
Mhm.
So I say, therefore, because the counties, nor any other political body should be allowed to determine for us who will fill the vacancy. At least they can only make suggestions.
Mhm.
That's all we want is suggestions in terms of this. We don't want them trying to do something different. Okay. So I go on to say that we as the community must not be persuaded by the early declarations of any group to fill vacancies.
Mhm.
And that's why I'm coming out against the Democratic Party having some say like they can do something. The third thing here is that with State Senator Tony Atkins terming out in the 39th Senatorial District and Supervisor Fletcher no longer a contender to replace her, a decision has been made by State Assembly District Representative Dr. Keela Weber to run for the Senate seat to replace Atkins. Dr. Weber, who was elected in a special election to replace her mother, Dr. Shirley Weber, upon her appointment by the governor to the position of Secretary of State. So you will notice that Dr. Weber, MD, got that 1 year special term, and in the special election, and then she just won a term of her own, and already she's moving from the Assembly over to the Senate, and she's got the support of Tony Atkins, who is President pro tem of the Senate and a very close friend to Dr. Shirley Weber, the Secretary of State. And so this shift means that the 79th Assembly District seat in the state legislature will be open as of the next election, during which Assemblywoman Weber will be running to replace Senator Atkins. She can't hold that seat and run for the other seat at the same time.
Mhm.
At this point, all this movement can either create tremendous opportunity, a loss of opportunity, or major setback for a black political advancement in San Diego County. The real question in all of this is, what role will you play, you the voter, okay? The potential voter. That's who each of us are. The San Diego Voice of Viewpoint, in conjunction with Black Men and Women United, will be open to a series of discussion groups to any who would like the opportunity to talk about these issues, and the people who might represent themselves who might present themselves to fulfill the expected vacancies. If interested in such decision or such discussion groups, then we invite you to be in touch with the paper so we can plan these meetings. You may also send letters to the editor or publication of your views. All comments are welcome. And so that is this week's editorial, which hopefully is flagging some discussion, and there are a lot of changes already underway.
Well, Dr. Warren, I think I should take this moment to um, throw my hat in the ring and to let everybody know that I am officially not running for any of the offices, but we're going to support those that desire to lead and to be a part of it. One of the things that's very important is that as we begin to vet people for these positions, we don't want to vet people that have not been doing anything. You know, a lot of times when these positions come open and people look at opportunities, what we find is that people come out to woodworks,
That they do.
people that you don't even know even existed. And you always ask the question, how are you a community servant now if you haven't done nothing before?
Mhm. And they're the
So,
ones who rush and want to meet with me. I don't have anything to talk to you about. You haven't done nothing.
yeah.
And we just got a few people here who are working, who've done something, who deserve to be there. And we got plans. We're going to help screen the right people.
Mhm.
I'm going to write about all of these people who haven't done anything and decide they're going to run. Because the question is going to be, where were you? Where have you been? What have you done?
Mhm.
And why? It's not a question of you're looking for a position as it is a question of, are you here to serve and to be of help?
Yeah. And so let me start off by saying one of the things that we do want to say is that we would endorse and highly support a young person running for office that is ready, equipped, and to serve and have been doing the work. But people need to understand that running for office is just not some great sound bites and that you look good in a suit or a dress or whatever. Understand that you go into heavy, and I want to say it again, heavy scrutiny from your finances to your living situation. If you have not scrubbed your social media, be it personal or private, you need to do so to make sure that you are not leaving things out there. And then you have to own up for some of the things that you might have said or done. Because if you don't, trust me, they will use it when they can, because you're in a fishbowl and they can see you at every side of you, whereas you can't see everybody. So I want to encourage people, make sure that if you're putting your hat in the ring, you are ready to be served, are ready to serve, and also ready to go under that heavy scrutiny that comes with running for office. Now, I'm gonna say that the current supervisor that is on hiatus and has been called for his resignation. Now, what he's being accused of, would he had to resign if he was not in politics? Would it have been such a big issue? Maybe yes, maybe no. There's still a lot of questions out there, but you have to understand it's like being a pastor of a church. You know what I'm saying? If you're a pastor of a church, you got a whole different scrutiny than if you're just a leader of an organization. So I want people to understand that we want people that are going to come with integrity, and we also want people that understand how to serve the whole community, but still be true to themselves.
Well, Dr. Thompson, I appreciate all that you just said, and you're so kind because I don't think it's a question of people coming who want to serve. It's a question of what have you done in terms of being involved. You know, uh, 50 years ago, at the age of 27, I was first elected to office, and it was a time of work in terms of what we did. Long hours, walking, knocking on doors. When I came to San Diego, I guess some 35, almost 40 years ago, I ran twice for the state assembly and once for the state senate. And I believe when I ran for the senate, I probably knocked on 95% of the doors between here and Imperial Beach in terms of reaching out and trying to touch people. There's a lot. There's a lot that goes into this, and we need people who are serious because today social media, the internet, all of this stuff has just changed things so
Mm-hmm.
that people think they can virtually buy their way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we need people who are concerned and know what the issues are.
Mm-hmm.
We got issues of homelessness. We got issues of no rent control, which we should have something here. We got issues of unemployment for young people when plans have been presented to local leaders. We got issues of a workforce partnership that I think should be dissolved and disbanded, and those dollars should go to the city so that we will be handling the employment things like we should, like other cities have done. Well, if you haven't done your homework, it's kind of late to be running around trying to gather up stuff, and then somebody asks you what you think and how you're gonna vote, and you don't know.
Well, Dr. Warren, somebody wants you to throw your hat in the ring for the supervisor's seat. They said we want Warren.
Well, you know what? I appreciate the thought, but as the old man said on the American Express commercial, been there, done that. I can't think of anything short of God hit me with a lightning bolt and cutting some stones out like he did with Moses that would make me even go back and put myself through that kind of suffer. I'd be very happy to help and share information with people because I think you need to know. We got people here that don't even know the difference, Brother Thompson, between the Board of Supervisors and the City Council.
Exactly.
They don't know the boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what they do. They don't understand that the county and the city are both charter entities with separate with sovereignty that doesn't overlap. They don't know. They don't even know how big San Diego County is. It's one of the biggest counties in the state with all kinds of stuff. So
Yeah. And the fourth district is the biggest district, supervisory district, from what I understand.
and it's got the overlap. That's the key thing is that the supervisorial district overlaps the city council fourth district,
Mm-hmm.
but both are separate.
Mm-hmm.
And so those two people have to work together. That leader for that district and that city council member,
Mm-hmm.
they are supposed to be the joint chairs of the city council reinvestment task force.
Yeah.
I spent 6 years on that task force in terms of regulating how banks could do business in this county. So it's a lot.
So one of the things that I've said and been very vocal about it is number one, if you're going to run for these seats, be it the 79th, be it the supervisory, be it any seat that is going to represent the communities that we serve, first and foremost, you need to be vetted. And you need to be able to come before Black Men and Women United, GOD Radio, from the desk of the editor. We need to have some real, true conversations with you. Number one. Number two, you have to be already active, not just talking about being active. You know, I'll even take if you're an active member in your church and in your local rec center. You know, or if you're a block, if you ran for block president and became block president, something that says that you have a horse in the game other than just yourself. And then the other thing is, I want to see the team that you want to build. Because no matter how good and smart you are, you have to have a solid team to serve your community. So your number two man, your chief of staff, need to be running right along with you, because we need to be able to vet them too, because sometimes people get in and then they don't even have the right chief of staff and wonder why they keep on knocking their head up against the wall.
Well, it's not just sometimes, Dr. Thompson, it's most of the times. And be it whatever office from local to congressional, uh, most people, after they have an election, they have a staff turnover about 6 months into their term, because the people who were their friends that they hired, they don't make the adjustment in terms of the responsibilities of the job that comes with getting the office. And another thing people need to understand, there's some people in this community who don't want to speak to or even talk to folks. I don't know how you can run for office when there are people in the community you can't talk to. Because what you don't know is that if you get elected to office and you get an attitude and say, I'm not going to talk to A, B, C, or D, you are subject to charges being brought against you for malfeasance in office, because you can't hold a position and then cherry pick who you're going to speak to.
Yeah.
You represent everybody. And the attorney general will come for you, because that's a mandatory investigation scenario. So we got all kinds of pieces to this here. And I don't want us to lose track of the importance of the gun legislation. I think it's important. We're looking at it. Every state, every city needs to be looking at people who are armed. But at the same time, I need us to start, especially African Americans. We are the most disorganized element here. African communities pull together, Asian communities pull together, Latino communities pull together, and we're less than 6%. But we're so busy out here fussing with each other and not don't have time. The churches can't get together, the pastors can't get together, because every time they do, somebody wants to know who's gonna be the leader, and it's just crazy. Meanwhile, you know, the Titanic is going down, and people are arguing over which seat they're gonna sit in on the deck, and that's the equivalent to what we're experiencing now.
Well, one of the things I would say is that we got to start looking at who's running for what. So if we have Dr. Aquila running for Senate, and who do you have for the 79th?
Well, I'm not even going to say who do we have, because as far as I'm concerned, that election is going to be next year, and we're going to have people are going to come forth, and a lot of folks are going to start now. But you know, the first horse in the race does not mean that the horse is going to win the race, because so many times when you have a race, the people who jump out there first, they don't pace themselves and they burn out along the way.
Yeah.
That's how the turtle beat the hare in terms of that race. And so I'm not ready to do anything other than look very closely at the people who present themselves, and I'm going to ask some serious questions. We've invited them to Black Men and Women United. We've offered to open our offices at Voice and Viewpoint for the meetings that I mentioned, that we can just come and have general discussion.
Maybe we should have politics 101 and have it as a private session, and anybody who's even thinking about it can secretly come and go to politics 101, and when they leave, they can determine if it is something for them. Because again, it's like, can I say this, Dr. Warren? Being a man of the cloth and a pastor, if you ever notice, everybody in the church many times want to be the pastor, because the pastor has they drive nice, they dress nice, they got what is it called, the pastoral committee, and they get anniversaries and all this stuff, and it looks glamorous.
Everybody don't do all that stuff,
No,
Doctor
no, I'm just saying, but
Thompson.
I'm just saying, but it looks glamorous on the outside. But what they don't see is when that pastor is woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning and have to go to the hospital to pray over somebody that might be either sick or passing or just had a major catastrophe. They don't see when that pastor has taken the last that he had to feed another family, and his family is eating beans and rice. They don't see when the pastor is up there cleaning bathrooms and everything. They don't see those kind of things. They only see the other side. And so I want people to understand that politics looks glamorous. You know, you get to go to all the different things, and you got people around you, you got a crew and everything else, but it comes with a cost. And you have to be willing to say, am I really willing to pay the cost? Because personally, and Dr. Warren, you know this, there's not a place that you can go to in America that you will be there and somebody don't come up while you eating dinner trying to talk to you or ask you a question. So if you don't like to be bothered while you're out with your family or whatever, politics is not for you.
Well, it's a 24-hour job, Dr. Thompson, and it doesn't come with a manual in terms of people understanding that. It's interesting you just use that example because, 40 years ago, when I was in politics, if my late wife and I wanted to go to the mall, we generally had to go out to Maryland or Virginia to some distance so that we could either shop or eat or go to a movie without being bothered.
Exactly.
Because anywhere else, somebody's going to recognize you. They're going to want a conversation. They're going to get mad if you don't stop and talk to them and think you're supposed to be on duty 24 hours a day. And so you're going to have all of those situations.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's too many pastors left in San Diego like the ones you're describing, cleaning the toilets and all of that. I mean, there are a few with the big cars. But I got to draw a distinction because my attitude from a pastoral standpoint has always been, first of all, I don't believe in pastor appreciations. So I've never had any of that stuff in my church, in the church that I co-founded. And I've always taken the position that if you want to show some appreciation, then bring someone with you to church, okay, who's interested in the word. That's the appreciation there. I don't think pastors should be charging people to do funerals and weddings and how much can they get for it and all of that. It's an insult. It goes with the job. If you're going to do it, if you're called to do it, that's what you need to do. And so that's why my attitude about service in terms of these positions we're talking about is so important because you have to have a desire to serve, to be in these positions and believe in what you're going to do, not that you're just there. And I want to make this observation for those who are listening. I've seen two types of people in my life get elected to public office. And there was a point when I used to provide training and orientations for new city council members, the people elected to office and were joining national trade associations. There's a person who takes the position and works hard. I mean, they go through all their mail themselves and the whole bit. They do that, okay? They read all of the committee reports and all of the studies that things they got to vote on. But then there's the other person who gets elected who doesn't read any of that stuff, gives it to somebody to read. They go to every party, every reception, kiss every baby, hug everybody. And it's the second group that gets elected, and it's the first group that doesn't get reelected because the second group is so busy being in touch with people, and they think because they see them that makes a difference in terms of how they vote. This key observation with all of this discussion we have about the wrong people being in office and the Republicans taking over, I don't hear anyone in this country talking about recall.
Mm-hmm.
And all they have to do is start a recall in every area where these people won't vote for gun control. Recall, take them out of office, and we don't see that. We just have lip service. Is it because they don't know? So maybe we do need that class you're talking about, Politics 101. And maybe if people want to come to it, I volunteer to teach it. But they got to come wanting to learn what they don't know, and not with the attitude, I'm here looking for a chance to debate and argue, because we're not interested in that.
Yeah, and one of the things about it is that we are really working on trying to prepare people to run to represent the community of, and I mean I'm looking at school board, District E. I'm looking at the uh, what is it? The district council, which is district election, the city
Okay.
council. I'm looking at the supervisory race. I'm looking at the 79th. I'm also even looking at one of your favorite people, Sarah Jacobs' position.
Why you want to do that to me? Tell me one of my favorite people.
I think that we need to replace her with someone that will truly represent our community and not just speak to us during election and don't come back.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, remember, many of us only voted for Sarah Jacobs because we didn't want Georgette Gomez in there because she thought that she was going to be the great hope. And she had all of these positions. She was head of MTS and Sandag and City Council. And as the old folks used to say, she went down like good golf went up. And so the vacancy. Then she tried to run over there for the assembly, and that didn't work. And so the people who hold, that's why we got term limits,
Hmm.
especially in California. Remember, we instituted term limits in California for the sole purpose of getting rid of Willie Brown. That was the one man who was Speaker of the House and controlled state politics. And the only way they were going to get him out was to create term limits so that people couldn't serve longer than 2 terms. And that's what happened because we had people making politics a career. And we still got problems here. So you and I keep talking, Dr. Thompson. We made this offer a week ago. We had no people come to indicate they wanted to have this discussion
Hmm.
with us, and we want them on this program. I think starting next week, we're going to bring people in and start some
Yeah,
discussion about the politics of the vacancies that we have. But none of this means anything if people don't vote.
exactly.
Okay, and we still have too many people who are not registered, don't vote, and don't think they need to vote, and think that we won't know that they don't vote, which is not true.
I might have to come up with a video and a jingle, just to make people get it on their mind that they need to be a part of that. Because you know how they say a closed mouth don't get fed.
Yeah.
We cannot just. We have to vote about it. We have to be involved and be a part of the decision making time. And I want people. I want you to encourage your family and your friends. If you know somebody that you know would be a good representative for our community seats that are coming up, talk with them. Be a part of them. I know that me personally. I'm already branding somebody, and although they be like, I don't know, I'm like saying, all right, Miss Candidate, because I really look at how you work outside of the spotlight, not just when the cameras are on. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? It's like being in church. Some folks when they in church, they super saint. But the minute they leave church, you have to ask if they're sane or not. So we're not looking for folks that live in double lives. We're looking for people that really truly have the passion and the heart for the community and in the constituency that they serve in. And guess what? We are the most diverse district, supervisory district, in the whole entire county. So they have to be able to serve a diverse population, but not forget who they are.
Well, I think I'm glad that you said that, Dr. Thompson, because um, so many times when we see the fourth council district in terms of the city council, people think this is not just black folks. Black folks live all over San Diego. We see the supervisorial district. You got country people. You got people in rural. You got people in cities. You got a whole mixture of folks, and you've got to interact with these people. You got to go to these meetings and hear from them and talk to them.
Hmm.
Okay, and all of these things you don't get told up front. You
Yeah,
find out after you get there
yeah,
that you got to do them.
yeah. Because I know if I had to go into the rural area, part of my political campaign is I rent a couple of horses and roll up to the ranches and say howdy, you know, and jump off that horse. The horse be hollering, "Thank you, Jesus." But I go up and they be like, I have my cowboy boots on and everything, and saying, "I'm just coming to ask for your vote and everything." Dr. Warren, you own horses, so you know that if you would have rolled up back there on a horse, they'd have been like, "Well, all right."
Well, people were receptive. Matter of fact, it's funny you say that because in certain parts of East County, there were still places that had hitching rails.
Mhm.
And I know of one area out in Scanzo where there's this like little community cafe on
Mhm.
Sundays. That's what people did. They rode their horses up to for breakfast
Mhm.
and tied their horses up to go in
Yeah.
to eat. And see, you can't be out there with clean boots on. You got to have a little manure on the boots, and
Uh-huh.
jeans got to be a little dirty. And most of those places are gone. In the 20 years that I did all of this with horses,
Mhm.
those places have shut down from Ramona, just going on up the sales and all of the things that brought people out. But San Diego used to have more horses than any county in California.
Mhm.
And now, with all of the changes, especially since the fires, you can't find a horse any place
Yeah.
almost because the price has just gotten to be ridiculous to try to maintain.
And
But the people can't be fooled, so they'll know if you for real, no matter how you come.
you know what I think about back then is when you would bring the horses up and hitch them up. It was like driving up in a new car. 'Cause they'd all come out and check out your horse and see what it looked like and how old is the horse and everything else of that nature. It's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle, and I think that in being in politics, you don't have to be schizophrenic, but you have to be real to what you are committed to, and you got
Yes,
to have, and you can't just be and the Bible say a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. You
right.
can't be double-minded. You can listen, you can have conversation, but ultimately you have to be focused on issues and the outcomes that need to take place in your community.
Ah, but Dr. Thompson, you just put your finger on one of the biggest problems in politics that people aren't prepared for. Because the moment you get ready for that first vote, there are going to be some people on both sides of the issue. And people are going to want to know, how are you going to decide which way you're going to vote?
Hmm.
You're going to flip a coin and look and see which side,
Hmm.
because you're going to be penalized or hated whichever way you go.
Yep.
And if you don't know what you stand for yourself, then you're not going to, like you say, you're going to be that double minded man that the scripture refers to.
Yeah.
And so you won't be able to. I would be nice if we had, we're here. We wanted to invite people to have a comment because the time to talk about this is now, not after people get in and then you are unhappy because of what they're doing. That's too late. We need to deal before they get there.
Well, you know what, Dr. Warren? Since people are tapped in on social media, y'all tap in. Who do you want to see run for the fourth district? Who would you like to see run for the supervisory district? Who would you like to see run for the 79th? Throw some names out there who you like to see. Now, you done thrown Dr. Warren's name out, and he has emphatically told you unless God struck him with lightning and told him to go forth, he's not going to go forth, but he will help. You have heard me say that I will help anybody, but I will not be in the running on any of this, but I will be willing to support and get those good ones in office. So, who would you like to see? Pastor Guzman, are you going to throw your name in the hat? Oh. See, Pastor Marty, Dr. Marty's up there, and he done threw it up there. Thank you very much, Dr. Marty. I respectfully decline uh, that position, but I am wanting to make sure they get real funny now.
Yeah,
Now it's
but
Dr. Warren as the advisor and Dr. T LT as an assistant. Well, we don't mind being behind the scenes because
no,
we do it for free now.
yeah, and I'm not even going to be behind the scenes. I'm going to be very much upfront with questions and support for whoever that makes the decision to
Yeah.
run, because I
Well,
think we need to do that.
well, I do respect that that Henry was able to come on. Henry, why am I black on Henry's last name? Um, was able to come on to Black Men and Women United and to announce that Monica Montgomery would be putting her hat in for the 79th.
You mean Henry Foster, her
Henry
chief of
Foster,
staff?
yes, chief of
Yes,
staff,
right.
and I do consider that to be a respect. I believe that she will be coming on herself officially, but I think it's important that and this is his politics. I'm just being honest. This is politics. This is one of the things that even Cindy Martin didn't get when she was superintendent of San Diego Unified School District. You can't just because people don't agree with you or don't look on you and be renewed, say you won't meet with AAAE or the Latino organization. You must meet with all people and listen because they're all constituents. Agree
Well,
or disagree.
well, no. If you were Cindy Martin, you didn't have to, because remember, here's a lady who was a principal, and all of a sudden they decide she should be superintendent.
Yeah.
The people who made us superintendent, they weren't worried about what other people thought.
Hmm.
And what happened there was not unusual. Remember, I'm a former the
School
director of
board.
the National School Boards Association with 90,000 school boards around the country. And I've seen every scenario that you can think of. I've seen gym teachers made superintendents, and I've seen the lifespan of superintendents. You know, when we had the former U.S. attorney here that was superintendent for a while, and he thought that he was still over in court the way he was trying to run the system. You know, I made a phone call to him, and I shared this observation with him, Alan Burson. I said, Alan, you know, you remind me of a bullfight and of the bull in the arena. And so he said, how so? I said, of all the people in the stadium, as the bull, you're the only one that don't know you on the clock.
Hmm.
They
Yeah,
gonna take you out of there. So you got to understand how long people can serve, what the reaction is going to be to the service, and where you're going to be in terms of what you're trying to do. I hope what we're doing here is, I want some people to feel comfortable enough to not only discuss, but if they think about it, I just don't want to see a situation where we get so many people in the African American community throwing their hats in the ring to run that we dilute the few votes that we're going to have, and then someone else takes over from another standpoint.
yeah,
And
and
so, for that not to happen, Dr. Thompson, we don't need any more than two people in this race,
exactly.
because if we get a second African American in the supervisorial race, we're gonna have a split, and it's gonna do just what I said. It's gonna open the door for someone else to get it, and it'll be our own fault.
So first things first. First
Yes,
things first is simply what your editorial said. We want special election. We do not want appointment.
yes, and I
So we
think they're
must
gonna
be
do that.
verbal about that.
I think they're going to do that.
Yeah.
And the other thing I'm trying to find out from the city clerk, is when Monica Montgomery Stepp runs, does she have to resign from the city council to run for the position? And if she's running for that position, which is automatically going to create a vacancy, if she has to resign, can we have both elections on the ballot at the same time? Both the District 4 election along with the Board of Supervisorial
Hmm.
position? Because now that's a gamble for her when she gets out there. It's no longer I got a safe place to stay. It's, do I have to give up
Yeah.
my seat to run? And I'm sure that's some of what she's looking at right now in terms of decision making.
Yeah. And so I think that we have to ask the question. We have to ask the question because, in Warnock, he's a pastor of a major church. And he won Senate. So he's in the Senate. And so do we run a pastor for a position?
Well, let's not even go there.
Pastor Warren?
Let's not even go there in terms of who we run. This is not the South, and Warnock was not only just the pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church, the former church pastor by Dr. King and his father, but he's an educated clergy person who held many positions in terms of the theological community before he became pastor. So that's not it. The day is gone that you can just get up and speak well, and therefore you ought to be the one in office. We still got this question of where's your heart, you
Yeah.
know, and that's the missing element, that we need people who are committed.
Yeah.
And if you can't be committed to have a conversation with us lay folks about what you want to do, then how can you represent us when you don't talk to us before you get there?
Yeah. And one of the things I always say in politics, you have to understand this. Um, and in life, I want to give this small thing. In any given day, there are going to be 50% of the people that will love you and will drink your bathwater. And then there'll be 50% of people that cannot stand you. And the sad thing about it is it changes based on what you can do for them.
Well,
So I want you to understand, and I'm going to say it again, that in politics, you cannot be emotional when people come up against you. Anytime that you're in leadership, you have to expect it, you have to work with it, and then even when you disagree, you still have to be respectful of those people that are disrespectful to you.
oh, that sounds so good, Dr. Thompson. That does. But at the end of the day, people going to get mad, and they're going to take it personally. We got local people in office right now who take personally anything they hear that they don't want to hear, and then they get arrogant with it, and that's a very dangerous place to be, because there are consequences for those things, you know. But again, we got to have people who want to talk. We want to encourage a dialogue.
Mhm.
If you don't know the process and you want to learn the process and you want to know about it, then just speak up and let us know. There are always, if you have a question, there's somebody else that's got the same question and wants to know the same thing you're asking. The only difference is they're gonna be quiet and let you ask the question for them.
Exactly. This is a little story, Dr. Warren. When I was at Knox Elementary School, I was a young educator, and I had called a parent and was telling them that I was concerned about their son. I kept seeing them go up to drug dealer cars after school and hanging out and things of that nature. And I'm thinking I'm talking to the young person's mother. Happened to be that it was his grandmother. His mother had been incarcerated. But the very next week, she got out and she came up to the school looking for me. And she came into the office and she said, I want to know where this person is or me. And I said, well, ma'am, I'm right here. And she commenced to light into me.
Of
And
course.
I said, ma'am, and she said she used a lot of nice profanity words and told me to sit down and until she was finished. So, I sat down and crossed my legs, and in my head, I'm like, she don't even know what she's dealing with right now. And after she finished, she said, "You can speak," you know, and I responded in a way from the community I grew up in. And after I had finished saying what I had to say, she looked at me and started cracking up laughing, and she said, "Now that's what I'm talking about. Somebody that ain't afraid." And I challenged her after that, if you don't think I know this community, show me the community. And that parent became one of my best parents, was one of the most active parents, but I let her have her voice. And then I had a conversation, then I challenged her to make me better.
What
So,
you just said is so important, Dr. Thompson, because see, a lot of educators, when parents show up excited and scream and holler at them, then they get mad and respond the same way. I was teaching some educators in Palm Spring once, and the university flew me over to teach these people. And I had all of these white women teachers in this class, and most of their children were Latina. And the parents would come to the school upset about things happening as children were being sent home and everything.
mhm,
And they were getting upset because the parents were mad with them.
mhm,
And I had to explain to them, these parents are not mad with you, but they're already out of their element when they show up. They're frightened and they're intimidated, but they need to speak up for their child.
mhm,
You don't respond to that the same way they come and just add fuel to the fire. You got to take the time to understand why they're upset and then be big enough. This is a problem across the board. This is why we have so many police killing people because they're trained to de escalate, but they don't care.
mhm.
Whatever you told me I didn't like, now I'm going to take it personally because I got the authority and I got the gun.
Yeah.
And so we have this attitude. So we have to calm down the manner in which we think. You
Mhm.
know, that might sound strange for some people coming from me, but you get over it over a period of time.
Yeah,
You know,
and one of the things about it is that you guys might say, "Well, why are we having this dialogue?" Because we know a lot of people are getting ready to throw their hat in the ring because they think they're ready. But to be ready, you're going to have to go through some thorough training, some thorough conversations to help you navigate. Because people, when you run, will look for your personal weaknesses, and they will every time that they can will come after you on those personal weaknesses. And what used to bother me is that every time somebody would try to come after me, Dr. Warren, back in when I started gaining weight, they talked about my weight, and that used to bother me. And then I started thinking about it. Well, if that's the only thing they can come after you about, okay, well, we can handle that. We can always lose the weight if that's the issue. If you feel, but my whole thing, but can you come after me on anything else? And so sometimes you have to realize that sometimes people pull on the one thing they can pull, that one trick pony, and you fall for it every time. Sometimes you got to sit down and say, that is absolutely right. Now that you got that out your system, how can we move on? What are we going to do next?
yeah, but
And
that's the
that takes
wisdom.
their
See,
power away from them.
that's the wisdom that comes with time.
Yeah,
That when you know not to respond to it in the manner in which is presented,
yeah.
and that's why Dr. Thompson, we have Black Men and Women United
Hmm.
because we've created a safe space for people to talk.
Hmm.
We can be upset, but our creed says that we will might disagree, but we'll respect each other in our
Yeah.
disagreement.
Yeah.
And we remind each other that in our mission statement when we speak. And so we're in a good position. We're in a good time. Where are you laughing at?
Somebody put in there, but if you ugly, you can't change that.
If you're ugly, can you change that?
No, she said if you ugly, you can't change ugly.
Oh, but you know what? You're wrong. Because if you're ugly and you got a great personality,
Yes.
your ugliness will be overlooked.
Yes. Ask Flavor Flav.
Ah,
With that
yeah,
being
yeah.
said, Dr. Ward, this has been a great conversation. Next week, we are looking to bring some people in that are talking about running.
We're gonna start getting into the political discussions in the
Yeah.
districts and the people running, and we want to give a chance to people who think that they've been ordained. But as we close, I want to remind you of an old Indian adage for all these people out there who've decided that they're the great black hope. The old Indian expression says that he who leads where no one follows merely goes for a walk. So we don't need a lot of walkers, okay? We want some people coming, if anything, hand in hand with some other folks to talk about what we're going to do.
And with that being said, this is from the desk of the editor with Dr. John Warren. It's been a great conversation. Next week, open mic, open discussion. Y'all jump in it. Plan to be here, 7 o'clock sharp. We got a good one for you next week. Right here on GOTRadio1.com.
Thank you. Are you going to keep that up for a moment?